In Mexico, the National Meteorological Service reported a potential tropical cyclone located in the Atlantic Ocean, only 275 kilometers from Yucatan. UNICEF Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa stated that the conflict in Gaza has become a war against children. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Daesh terrorist group claims responsibility for recent attacks, including beheadings of Christian worshippers. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The government of Venezuela has strongly rejected the process of expropriation of the company Citgo Petroleum Corporation, which continues to be carried out by the United States authorities under the pretext of a judicial process of forced sale of shares clearly contrary to the law. Through her X account, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez expressed her rejection of the theft of Citgo instrumentalized by the U.S. government. She added that Venezuela will not recognize any type of fraudulent transaction and that the people in a great national union will defend their patrimony and apply implacable justice to those who plotted this plunder against the Republic. The Peruvian state defended on Monday before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights a controversial bill that specifies the application and scope of the crime against humanity and war crimes in the Indian nation's legislation. During a public hearing to request provisional measures in the Barrios Altos and La Cantuta cases, considered massacres against the civilian population, the representatives of the Peruvian state dismissed the accusations. State agent Cesar Pastor Briceño pointed out that in the records of convictions for Barrios Altos and La Cantuta, it can be verified that none was treated as crimes against humanity or war crimes, but for common criminal offenses, aggravated homicide, kidnapping, injuries. The proposal is promoted by Fujimorism. The Argentine judiciary, in agreement with the government, is holding 16 demonstrators arbitrarily accused of terrorism. In a press conference and accompanied by human rights organizations and leaders, their camera is called to mobilize in front of Casa Rosada to demand their release. The relatives of those imprisoned for demonstrating against the law of bases called for a concentration this Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. in Plaza de Mayo to demand the release of all the detainees. They demand justice system to carry out a process that respects democratic and constitutional guarantees. Among the prisoners, there are 5 students and members of the social movements. On the other hand, the bloc of deputies of Unión por la Patria will present on Tuesday a complaint filed before the Federal Justice for the aggression suffered by several deputies during the violent police operation deployed last Wednesday during the session in which the Omnibus Law was discussed. Deputies will hold a press conference from 3:30 p.m. local time, in which they will also demand the urgent release of demonstrators who are still detained during the subsequent manhunt in the vicinity of Congress. In Mexico, the National Meteorological Service reported a potential tropical cyclone located in the Atlantic Ocean, only 275 kilometers from Yucatan. The weather event already registers maximum sustained winds of up to 65 kilometers per hour. Authorities added that it will bring heavy rains in Veracruz, Puebla, Campeche, and other cities in the southeast of Mexico. The United States National Hurricane Center reported that they are tracking 2 areas of interest in the Atlantic, one of them over the Gulf of Mexico with a 70% possibility of hurricane formation, and the other is South Florida. Salvadoran authorities reported on Monday that 11 people have died following the rains and floods affecting the country, 6 more people than the previous report. The last report on death provided by the National Civil Police stated that at least 3 people died buried by a landslide that fell in the neighborhood of El Centro in Tacuba, Aguachapán. Meanwhile, 2 men died when a tree fell on the motorcycle they were riding on Las Chinamas Highway in Aguachapán also. The authorities also said that several incidents were attended to: more than 200 fallen trees, 42 landslides, over 145 obstructed roads, 6 damaged walls, 4 vehicles directly affected, 6 urban floods, and 51 flooded houses. Let us now take a short break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. UNICEF Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa, Adel Jod, said the conflict in Gaza has become a war against children. The official made the statement on Monday at an event held in Tokyo. Jod added that there has not been any Israeli attack against the Strip where a child has not been killed or injured. The regional director stressed that Gaza has a very young population concentrated in a very small area. That is one of the reasons why a ceasefire cannot be postponed. The UN official assured that Gaza is now a graveyard of children. On Monday night, 9 civilians were killed in Israeli army airstrikes targeting civilians east of the southern Gaza Strip city of Rafah. According to a medical source at the European hospital, 9 lifeless bodies and several wounded, some in critical condition, were transferred to Han Yunis Hospital, south of the Strip. In addition to these incidents, 2 more civilians were killed and others injured in a drone bombing in Rafah. Another tragic incident left 1 civilian dead and multiple people injured, including children and women, in a shelling in the Kirbat al-Adas area, north of the city. These devastating events bring the number of civilians killed in the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the ongoing aggression by the occupation on October to over 30,000, with more than 85,000 injured. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, announced on Monday that 193 of its workers have been killed in Gaza, where attacks by Israeli forces continue. The agency assured that this number of murdered officials since October 2023 is the highest on record. Through its X account, UNRWA has classified Gaza as one of the most dangerous places in the world for humanitarian workers. However, the agency highlighted the commitment of its members who continue to work to support families and provide aid amid the dire humanitarian crisis. Also in Palestine, the United Nations World Food Programme warned of the possibility that southern Gaza will soon reach the same catastrophic levels of hunger that were previously seen in the north. WFP Deputy Executive Director Carl Scow, after a 2-day visit to Gaza, said that persistence of a hostile operating environment makes it almost impossible for humanitarian operations to deliver desperately needed food aid. He also informed that the situation in the south of Gaza was quickly deteriorating and that in order to get to the people, they drove through rivers of wastewater. The WFP officials said that other than providing humanitarian help, they need to start spreading hope by supporting the water cleaning and the basic healthcare needs. In India, Priyanka Gandhi, sister of the main opposition Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, is set to contest her first elections. MS Gandhi was considered by the Indian people the most popular of the Gandhi siblings, and many have pointed out her resemblance with Indira Gandhi, her grandmother and former Prime Minister of India. Priyanka Gandhi makes her debut in the elections by contesting for the parliament seat of Wayanad in the southern Indian state of Kerala. MS Gandhi's debut will be closely watched because of her big amount of supporters and because if she wins these elections, all siblings of Indian most famous political dynasty will have a seat in parliament. We now have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the terrorist group Daesh claimed responsibility for recent attacks in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where local authorities announced the beheading of several Christians. In this sense, the spokesman of the Democratic Republic of the Congo's armed forces confirmed that Daesh had taken responsibility for the killing of 60 Christians, including an officer of the Congolese army. It should be noted that the terrorist group killed more than 150 people since the beginning of June, and precisely in view of the difficult situation, the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, denounced the persecution suffered by the Congolese Christians. The Ukrainian government, within the framework of the new conscription law approved in May, incorporated into its ranks some 2,750 common prisoners, in order to recruit more than 300,000 new soldiers to cope with the advancing Russian army. Ukrainian authorities lowered the recruitment age from 27 to 25 and allowed prisoners to join the army's ranks. The enlisted inmates are responsible for crimes such as drug trafficking, armed robbery, and murder, and will be enlisted to serve in the assault troops carrying out attack, sabotage, and infiltration operations at the front. Experts assure that these actions will not change the real situation on the battlefield, but will serve the Kiev government to request more aid from Western nations. Meanwhile, the United States government announced in Switzerland a new $1.5 billion aid package for Ukraine. The package includes the provision of $500 million for energy assistance and $324 million allegedly to encourage private sector investment. On the other hand, Washington said some $300 million will be allocated to support civilian security. The announcements were made despite recent warnings by U.S. officials that Kiev has one of the highest rates of corruption and the government's use of these funds is unknown. Meanwhile, the Russian government said it will assess the damage caused to its economy by Western sanctions and will demand compensation at some point. The statement was made by the Vice President of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, who also denounced the West's out-of-bounds war against Moscow and the United States sanctions on more than 4,000 Russian individuals and companies since February 2022. Medvedev also denounced similar actions by the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, and other countries. The Russian official urged other nations affected by Western economic restrictions to follow suit and begin to systematize and assess the damage suffered. The United Nations report that more than 800 migrants have gone missing or died in the Mediterranean Sea on 2024. The entity points out that the number represents an average of 5 people dead or missing per day since the beginning of the year. Agencies of the UN informed that this Monday the ascendance of the total after the report of 64 missing people after the shipwreck of the boat in which they were traveling near the coast of Calabria in southern Italy. Among the agencies that spoke out were the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the International Organization for Migration, and the United Nations Children's Fund, which expressed their deep sorrow for dozens of victims of 2 new accidents in the Mediterranean. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.